For one who is indifferent, life itself is a prison. Any sense of community is external, or even worse, non-existent. Thus, indifference means solitude. Those who are indifferent do not see others. They feel nothing for others and are unconcerned with what might happen to them. They are surrounded by a great emptiness, filled by it, in fact. They are devoid of all hope as well as imagination. In other words, they are devoid of any future. And that quote comes from Elie Wiesel. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxwell Igan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I will be your host for the next hour. Very often on this radio program, ever since I started the program, in fact, I've spoken to you about energy. I've attempted to help the listener understand that energy literally makes up 100% of creation. Everything is energy when it all comes down to it. Everything that exists in reality at all, when broken down to its basic component parts, is simply photon light and phonon sound. That's everything. Everything, all matter, everything that we perceive with the five senses. And a lot of people understand this, but they find it very difficult to really comprehend what it means. Often when I speak to people about the nature of atoms, and I explain to them that atoms are well over 99% empty space. In fact, when broken down, only 1/10,000th of 1% of an atom is actually matter. And many people look at this and they think, well, that's amazing. And I think, well, it's actually a lot more than amazing. Because what it means is that solid matter is an impossibility. There's absolutely nothing in the world that is solid. Because if everything is made of atoms, and atoms consist of 99.99999% empty space, then the mere existence of physical matter simply cannot be explained. And it would appear that all physical matter is merely the product of perception. It's there because human consciousness perceives it to be there. And it would appear that we believe that that is what exists here because this is what we are taught exists here. And that might at first appear to be a strange statement to make, but it's not if you really start to look at things and really start to gain some comprehension about how reality actually works. Now, there's been a lot of talk over the years of the holographic universe, even reports I've seen in the mainstream that are saying that scientists are now suggesting that the entire world may in fact be a hologram. Now, suggestions like this are extremely significant for a number of reasons, and it's important to understand that evidence to support these suggestions exists all over the place. And it's also extremely important that people begin to gain some type of comprehension of what all of this truly means and how it can be related to what is going on around them and to what's going on this planet. And look, I'm bringing this up, folks, because I'm still getting letters from people who are saying they're in a state of fear, they're in a state of depression. There's many people feeling unhappy with their lives, unhappy with what they're seeing around them. And there's many people that seem to be having difficulty dealing with some of the information that they're getting. And so I really wanted to go through this today because, as I've often said, folks, I live my life in a state that is completely free of fear. I mean, and that's not to say that I'm going to stand in front of a tiger and let him maul me, or I'm going to take unnecessary risks. I mean, what I'm saying here is that I don't have any fear. That doesn't mean I've lost all common sense, reason, or sanity. And of course, I'm not going to jump off a cliff because I don't have any fear. That's not the same thing. what I'm saying is I have no fear of the future. I have no fear of anything reality may bring to me, because I see everything that happens to me on this planet as experience. It's simply what needs to happen for me to learn what I'm here to learn, and for me to gain the information that the collective consciousness needs me to gain. But anyway, look, getting back to what I was saying about the holographic universe, when you understand that atoms are all empty space, and then you begin correlating it with other information that's available, then you begin to see what's actually going on here. And you begin to see that what we experience as reality is a mathematical construct. It's quite literally a program that is based on our perception of reality. And that perception is very, very influenced by the information we are presented with through our education and social systems. And this also is not as far-fetched a notion as many may first perceive it to be. So, okay, if this is a mathematical construct, which it really does appear to be, and it is literally a program, then how does it run? Well, when you understand how everything is simply photon light and photon sound, that atoms are empty space, and then you start looking into the structure of DNA and the properties of electromagnetism, things become a little bit clearer. Now, I've often mentioned to you the work of people such as Dr. Bruce Lipton, who has very adequately explained how cell membranes work and how they literally download an electromagnetic signal from the surrounding field. And it would appear that this is how your consciousness accesses the biological water-based computer that is your body. It's literally downloaded from the surrounding energy field into that body. And that is the vehicle that is used for you to experience this reality. And the recent studies into water that clearly demonstrate that water has memory also goes a long way to explaining how this procedure works, because there's all the information that is needed to run the operating system. There is all the data that is needed in order to create reality, to create life. All of the information, all of the memory exists within the water. And your body is a water-based organism. So all of this information, all of this memory, all of this RAM drive comes into your body. Your body is virtually the operating system, and your consciousness is downloaded into it. Via your cell membranes, the frequency that is downloaded is determined via the structure of your DNA, which is what makes you you. And this is how the program runs, and this is how reality operates. And when the collective consciousness believes reality to be what we see before us, then that, of course, is what we experience, because it's programmed into the water via the collective experience and the collective belief of those that have come before. Now, this may seem all very strange to people who have never really looked into this sort of thing, but then you can see that this hypothesis is also supported by the physical makeup of matter itself. Understanding, of course, that physical matter is, as I said, simply made up of different vibrating energies of photon light and photon sound, but the way it forms into matter itself is all based on sacred geometric principles. Everything is sacred geometry. What is geometry? Geometry is basically mathematics using shapes, if you really want to look at it. So here we have a mathematical geometric construct that creates all matter. No matter how chaotic this matter may appear to be, whether you're looking at the chaos of a tree, the chaos of a cloud, the chaos of a waterfall, the chaos of a field of grass, it may look chaotic on the surface, but when you really get down to it and start looking at it on a molecular level, what you find is geometry, mathematics, phi ratio, and the Fibonacci number sequence. And this is in all reality, without exception. Everything consists of sacred geometry and phi ratio Fibonacci sequence. So if this is really a random construct, if this is really a natural evolution, something that was brought about by nature through a random series of chemical events, then why is it not more random? Why does it contain set mathematical formulas that exist within everything? And of course, the only obvious answer to this question is because reality itself is a mathematical construct. As Max Planck, the founder of quantum physics, said, we can only assume that there is a conscious and intelligent mind behind the matrix, the force that makes up all matter. So this is definitely not as far-fetched as many people may perceive it to be, nor is it a new idea. In fact, science has been slowly realizing what reality is for a very long time now. So the point is that when you understand all of this about reality and you start understanding what is going on here, and you start to understand that what you are having here is simply an experience, then it becomes very difficult to fear anything that can happen. I mean, even if you die, you're still that frequency, you're still you. You simply make a transition to another place. There is nothing that can ever threaten or kill the frequency that is you. There is never a time that you didn't exist, and there will never be a time that you don't exist. You are absolutely eternal. You are the frequency, the expression of the consciousness of creation that is you. And you will always be this. The problem is that we have been taught that reality follows certain rules and exists in a certain way. And we have been taught to fear reality. We've been taught to fear the world around us, to fear the people around us, to fear the very act of being alive. It's just the fact that we have to pay to be alive. This whole system's been constructed to keep us in a state of fear virtually since birth, well, since being a very young child anyway. As soon as we're old enough to really start taking the world in and perceiving it for what it is, we begin to be educated in the ways of fear and in the realities or so-called realities of our world, when really what we are subject to is indoctrination into a fictional system. So when you really begin to look at all of this, folks, the question really then becomes, where did human consciousness come from? And why is it acting in the way it is? I mean, sure, there are some pretty bad people that are in control of things, but why is the overall human consciousness doing what it's doing to begin with? And I'd like to explore that question a little bit now, because I think it's something that really needs to be asked. I mean, when you look at the planet, you see every single problem that this planet faces all comes from the human race. It all comes from us. We are the source of every evil that we've ever seen on this planet. And we will continue to be the source of every evil that we see on this planet until we start to really look at what reality is and really start to understand what this force is within ourselves that causes reality to be this way. What is it that is interfering with human consciousness? Because it really does seem like human consciousness is being interfered with. And of course, there's always the obvious explanation that we are the source of every evil that exists on this planet because we are the only creature that exists on this planet that has any concept of evil. We could see an animal kill another animal in nature, and there is no sense of evil in that. We can see a cat kill a bird, and the cat will never feel any ounce of remorse or any sense of conscience or any sense of evil in what it does. And the bird will meet its demise without ever once feeling sorry for itself. A bird can sit on a wire and freeze to death in winter without ever once feeling sorry for itself or feeling remorseful for its plight. So perhaps it is our mere perception that evil is real that actually creates evil, or that allows us to create evil anyway. But what is it in the human consciousness that causes us to create this stuff to begin with? How did we lose our ability to be able to read reality the way we should be able to? How did our DNA get locked down? How did we lose so much of our consciousness? And again, the question must be asked, is the human consciousness, the collective human consciousness, being controlled or manipulated in some way? Is that what has helped to create the reality that we're in, or have we simply done it ourselves? I mean, the question really has to be asked, folks, because the way the collective perception of humanity is being controlled is pretty amazing. I mean, sure, we see all of the symbolism that exists around us. We see all of the stuff that locks us into the Matrix, but this is incredibly complex stuff. This is incredibly advanced, well, I suppose you'd call it magic. I mean, there's very little else you can call it. But the whole bombardment that humanity is subject to via symbolism, via electromagnetism, via television, via media propaganda, social hierarchy, the education system, all of this stuff, the fluoride, the toxins in the food, all of this stuff, folks, this is an incredibly complex system. And the question becomes, what sort of mind could have thought this up? Is what we are seeing simply the product of the collective failure of human consciousness to ever face itself and face its shadow? Or is there something far more sinister going on here? Simply because the sheer complexity of this system, it boggles the mind. It literally does boggle the mind. And this is why it's so difficult for so many people to wake up to it. I mean, seriously, when you understand that everything within reality is mathematical, everything is exactly the way I explained before, looking at it from a point of view of physics and science, then how did the human consciousness get into a state where this is the reality that we've created for ourselves? I mean, if we're supposed to be so advanced, I mean, is this it? Is this what we came up with? Because it doesn't make any sense at all. And I guess where I'm trying to go with all of this is simply to get people to ask themselves that question, because it's an important one to look at. And if people can just sort of stop and think about this for a little while, I'm sure they will realize that it is a question that really, really needs to be acknowledged by people. Because if people continue to fail to acknowledge that this question exists, then the human race will continue to fail to find solutions to the problems that we face. You see, the first step to humanity finding a solution or creating a solution is to acknowledge that there's a problem. And folks, in order to acknowledge that the problem does exist, one only has to look at the state of the planet and the state of all life upon the planet. Now, when you do this, and when you begin to look deeper at the root cause of all of the problems, acknowledging that we are and have always been the source of all evil on this planet, then it becomes obvious that the real answer is to face the shadow within ourselves, the shadow that separates us from each other. Because it's humanity's separation from each other and humanity's separation from the planet in which they live upon that has created all of the problems. You know, if we live in a state of service to the creation, as I've so often said, If you're serving the creation, if you're serving those around you and you're serving yourself as those around you, then all the problems go away. So when you gain this knowledge and you gain this knowing within yourself, it becomes clear that even if there is a manipulating hand, even if it's an earthly hand, if it's an extraterrestrial hand, if it's a satanic hand, it doesn't matter what sort of a hand it is, then all one has to do to defeat it is to follow that one law of creation and to serve the creation. Stop serving the system. Stop supporting the fictional meme. Start supporting each other. Become truly free. Become who and what you are, and live to serve the conscience of God. The conscience of your Creator, whatever you perceive that God and that Creator to be, then the whole system fades away. And this can even be used when approaching the legal system, is the fact that you were born to serve the conscience of God if you claim to choose that right. So if any legal system is attempting to enforce any man-made legislation upon you that infringes upon the conscience of God, then you are not dealing with a legal issue, you're dealing with a spiritual issue, and you need to approach it from that perspective. Humanity simply needs to change the perspective via which we view things from. We need to feel free. We need to understand that the conscience of God, whatever you perceive God to be, is to serve the creation and all that exists within the creation. Every person, every man, every woman, every child, every rock, every tree, every blade of grass, every drop of water, every molecule of atmosphere. I mean, can there be any real denial of this fact? If the Creator created the creation, then of course the Creator's desire is to serve the creation, otherwise the creation would not have been created. Indeed, it was created through desire. And so obviously the actions of man should be to live by that conscience. Serve all the creation, including yourself, and treat all as yourself, in Lakesh. And the whole world changes, folks. See, it doesn't matter who's in control. All that matters is that we realize who and what we are, because it is in this realization that we defeat every single system of control that exists to enslave us, and we defeat it without even raising a hand. Not one shot needs to be fired. Not one drop of blood needs to be spilled. All humanity has to do is to realize that we are all in Lakesh, and to stand in our power and act within the conscience of God. And folks, I'm not religious. When I talk about God's law like this, I'm not religious. But I believe that there is a matrix, there is a conscious mind behind everything that we perceive in reality. And I say this simply due to the evidence that abounds to support the claim, such as I outlined in the earlier part of the show, when one understands that everything we perceive is based on mathematical formulas, that memory is stored in water, and that everything in reality seems to function as a program, then it becomes obvious that there is some form of conscious mind behind reality. I use the word God because I don't know what else to call it, but there's something there. There is definitely a conscious mind there, and I believe that the one law of creation is to serve the creation. So for me, that is God's law, and serves as the conscience of God. And this law and this service to creation and this conscience of God may be perceived as the maxims of equity. And it's when people learn to stand in their equity, to stand in their power, not to work to become free, but to know that they are free to begin with. It's simply their perception that prevents them from being so. Then things will change. You see, that really is how we change reality, folks. We simply have to realize that we're free. There are so many people that go down pathways to try to establish their freedom. They go down the sovereignty pathway, they go down the constitutional law pathway, they go down the free man pathway. They do all of these things in an attempt to free themselves within the legal system. But what they fail to realize is that the legal system itself is fiction, that they are already free, and that the only master they need serve is whatever it is they perceive their creator to be. And people need to comprehend this concept of freedom, to know this freedom and to stand in this freedom, because until they choose to do so, no revolution will serve any purpose at all, because the revolution that is required is an internal revolution. It is an evolution of individual consciousness to the point where each individual knows that they are free and knows who and what they are. We just need to embody this, folks. And I think it's break time now, so I'll have to leave it there for now, and we'll go and have a break, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again in a few minutes. Thanks very much for listening. Welcome back, folks. Now, before the break, I was going through the different aspects of the construct that we perceive as reality. And I was doing this in an attempt to help the listener understand that there really is nothing to fear in this world, because ultimately all we really fear is death, and there really is no death. There is a transition from this reality, but there is never any death. You don't die, folks. Your soul is eternal. And the thing is that when one really begins to understand this and comprehend it fully, then all fear drops away, because there really is no reason to be in fear of anything. And what I have been attempting to demonstrate for you is that all of the problems that we face on this planet actually have a common cause, and that all of the problems can actually be addressed via a common method. And that method is unity among the people and peaceful non-compliance carried out en masse. That really is how to change everything, folks. We need to see the fictional system, the meme that enslaves us, for what it is, and simply not fight it, but turn our back on it. Simply turn away. Turn towards each other, connect with each other, start helping each other, and we change the world. This is what must be done, and really when you think about it, folks, this is the only way that true and holistic change will ever be brought about. As I've pointed out to you many times in the past, you will never change the system from within the system. You'll never change the system by operating within the parameters that the system has provided for you to operate under, because the system itself is designed firstly for self-preservation. So the rules which you will need to adhere to in order to attempt to affect change from within the system will simply never allow you to affect any real and lasting change. And this is, of course, because you are working within what is essentially a fictional system. See, that's the thing, is that the system is fictional. It's just an idea. And it's essential that people begin to comprehend this, because even having this knowing will change the way you view everything. And as I said, it doesn't really matter who is in charge, whether it's an Illuminati, whether it's an alien race, whether it's whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is how to extricate ourselves from this system, because once we do that, who they are and who is really in control and what is really happening on this planet will be made apparent by default as soon as we disentangle ourselves from the system. You see, we need to focus on the solutions rather than the problems. We need to be aware of the problems, absolutely, but then we need to implement the solution. And because all of the problems that we face have a common cause, then there is, of course, a common solution. And this is what I keep going on about, folks. The solution is community. The solution is to be able to depend on those around you. That's really all it would take. And there's no reason why you should perceive people around you to be a threat. The only reason people around you would be a threat is because they are in a state of shortage, because of the system itself. But if you connect with people around you, then you can help them with that state of shortage. You can help provide for each other. It really is a simple thing to do. It just seems to be something that city folks have a hard time getting their head around, because it seems that the closer the community is in terms of the more people there are and the tighter the space that these people are crammed into, the more divided these people seem to be. Whereas people in the country whose houses might be half a mile from each other or even more, these people all seem to get on quite well, and they all seem to know each other better than people in cities who live all on top of each other and don't know their neighbours at all. It is a very bizarre thing that the closer human beings are packed together, the more divided they become. I've always found that to be very strange. But again, even that is a natural progression, simply because of the state of our consciousness, because that's really what it always comes back to. All of the problems, everything that is going on, it all ultimately stems from our failure to face our own shadow. Now, I've spoken about this so many times in the past, but ultimately that is what it is, folks. It's that fear within ourselves. It's the fear of opening ourselves up to others and of seeing ourselves in others. This is what keeps our community divided. Because when you have stuff with other people, when you meet someone and there's just stuff going on, you just don't feel comfortable around this person or whatever, what is actually happening is you are being forced to face part of yourself that you don't wish to face. Because when you have stuff with someone else, when you have feelings or emotions or you have a problem with someone, then it's your problem. It's not their problem, it's your problem, because you're the one who has this stuff. You are the one who's having emotional issues with someone, or choosing to judge someone, or choosing not to want to be around someone, simply because your frequency doesn't resonate with that frequency. But really, when you feel like this, what you're being provided with is an opportunity to understand why. What is it about that person that causes you to have stuff with that person? There's something there that you need to know. You're just missing the point, or very often running away from the opportunity. Because really that's what it is, folks. It's an opportunity. All of these types of interactions that we have with people, when we do feel slightly uncomfortable around someone, it's an opportunity. What you need to do is you need to get closer to that person and get to know them and find out what it is about them that makes you feel uncomfortable. Because the problem lies with you, not them, because you're the one who is having this stuff. And look, even if you're dealing with someone who perhaps has done you wrong, or has stolen from someone, or has done something wrong to somebody that you know, or whatever, ultimately that person only did what they did because they were disconnected from reality. They had a misconception of reality. They were brought to that point by what their life has been to that point. I mean, there are some very sociopathic people that do some very sociopathic things, but you've got to understand that these are, again, a product of this system. The system is designed to create sociopathic people. So you can't dislike them for that. What you need to do is to see the opportunity that it gives you to love these people and to help these people see that there is a better way. And very often, folks, people do wrong things, and they make these mistakes. They have things happen in their lives. They get bad press from their events. And from making all of these mistakes, eventually they do learn how to do it right. People do change, folks. So most of these people ultimately need forgiveness. And why would you not forgive these people? Why would you not allow them the opportunity to make mistakes and to learn by their own mistakes? It's when they don't learn, well, you can obviously not put yourself in a position where someone who's taken advantage of you will get the opportunity to do so again. But what I'm saying is that it's a complete waste of energy to hate these people for what they did in the past, because they were probably just disconnected. And we live in a society that is designed to create disconnected people. So you can't fight that. You can't feed that by hating it. You need to help that energy find a better way and help that individual realize the power of community and the sheer joy and bliss of living in a state of giving to others, and how much doing so changes the life of the giver. It really does. When you give to people, folks, when you give of yourself and you give to people and you give time to people, you give energy to people, you give conversation and smiles to people, you can literally change your life. Just by giving people a helping hand or a comforting shoulder or an ear to talk to now and then, you can really make a difference to so many people in your community. And by doing so, you can make an incredible difference to your own life as well. And everybody's done wrong things, folks. You've done wrong things. I've done wrong things. Everybody has done wrong things. This is how we learn. But sometimes when given the opportunities, we fail to learn by continually judging others for their mistakes, as if we're simply not approving of their need to learn as well. I don't really judge anybody in humanity as being bad for what they've done in the past, because this entire system is designed to create people who basically do the wrong thing. People who are kept constantly in a state of shortage, have to pay to be alive, and perceive that acquisition is success. And it's not reality. So I can't blame anybody from within the system for feeling desperate enough to want to steal or take from somebody else to gain for themselves, because most people within the system feel that there's something a lot better, that it's all wrong, that they're hard done by, that they deserve better in life, and all sorts of things. Most people are quite bitter within the system. But the problem isn't the people. The problem is the system itself that creates these type of people. And so you can't blame people for being that way. And it doesn't matter that they've been that way. What matters is when they realize that they are that way, and they learn a better way, and then they seek to make real change within their own life. So it doesn't matter what you've done wrong. It doesn't matter what you have done in the past. What matters is what you do from this point. What matters is what you do with your future. And when you begin to gain a real knowing within yourself of what reality is, of how you interact with reality through your emotions, through your intentions, and think of the whole universe as being an energetic universe rather than even a biological universe, because it's more energy than anything. There's hardly any biology even here. We can go back to the nature of atoms again just to prove this. It's all electrical, folks. So when you understand how it works energetically more than any other way. So it doesn't matter, folks. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It matters what you do with your future. It matters what energy you are in from this point forward, because this is how reality changes. This is how your reality will change, and the more people change their own individual reality by being in the correct energetic state, the more reality changes. It just filters out that way. You see a change in your life, and people around you start asking, well, what's changed about you? All these good intentions and kind people are around you, and that gets them involved. More people want to be involved, and it just ripples out through the community from there. So try to really realize the connection that we've got with each other, that we all come from the same energy, that we're all creating this reality together. We are all in this together, and start thinking of the universe as an energetic universe rather than a biological universe. Start speaking with those languages and following the one law of creation, which is service to the creation. Then we can really affect some positive change on this planet and allow people to make mistakes, folks. And the way to do that is to apply some forgiveness to your own consciousness. We really do need to forgive those who have erred in the past, because we've all made errors. We've all gone down the wrong path. Most people tend to go astray at some time in their life. It's a very human thing to do. But it's how we learn, folks. And everybody needs to be afforded that opportunity. And if we can learn to forgive each other and to support each other in a better future, we can very easily create one. But we'll never do it if we don't forgive, because failing to forgive, this is simply another form of division. And it's so much hard work as well, folks. It's so difficult to hate people and to dislike people, because it actually does take quite a lot of energy and quite a lot of effort to do so, to maintain that animosity towards someone. I simply can't do it. I tend to forgive everybody. But again, that doesn't mean I'm going to allow myself to be put into a position where I'm going to have the same person take advantage of me again if they had done so in the past. The thing is, folks, that we spend far too much time judging others and worrying about the actions of others, and we do this in little petty ways amongst the people that we know in our own little particular pond that we live in. And we need to rise above the pond, and we need to look around a little bit at what is going on in the world around us, and realize that all of the problems are fictional. This entire system is fictional. Simply having that knowledge and standing in that knowledge is literally 80% of the battle for many people. And sure, there are some nasty people in charge of things. There could be any number of things going on here, folks. I keep finding it difficult to get past the fact that the planet appears to be being strip-mined, and that the moon seems to be so obviously artificial. I think that might be a little bit of a sign, but that's an interesting point that I seem to always come back to in my research, regardless of attempting to avoid ever doing so. But it doesn't matter, folks. It doesn't matter what it is or who it is that's in charge. What matters is how to fix it, how to fix the problem. And that's why I keep harping on about the same old things of common unity among the people. You know, you say this to people as well. You say common unity and they say, well, that sounds a little bit like communism. And they make all these isms out of things. Communism, socialism, terrorism, all of these things. And if you're going to have an ism at all, the only ism I'm talking about is humanism, sentient being-ism, compassion-ism, love-ism. I find the whole ism thing to be kind of strange, but I really believe, and it seems to be so obvious, that everything we're facing can be fixed by simply connecting with each other, breaking down the barriers of division, whatever they may be, realizing that they're all fictional, and simply connecting and simply stopping. I'd like to just go out and lift my hands and say to the entire world, just stop. Just for 5 minutes, folks. Just stop and have a look at this. I really feel that if people could simply snap out of this hurry that everybody seems to be in and just took a moment to look around them, they'd soon see the fictional reality that they live in for what it truly is. It's just difficult to get people to actually stop for 5 minutes to have a look. But the fact is that more and more people are waking up to reality all the time, and it's all happening exactly as it should happen. Unfortunately, it simply has to get dark in order for people to see the light. And it's a shame it has to come to this, but that's simply the way it must be. And the most important thing that people who are awake can do is to maintain their energy levels through this period. Because we are right now in a period of evolution. Consciousness has an opportunity to go in a number of directions, and I believe that by our intention and by our energetic state, we are collectively shaping what that direction will be. But I also believe that it's very apparent that there is also another force that is attempting to manipulate this evolution and to control the human consciousness through this evolutionary period. Well, we're getting very close to the end of the show here, folks. I'd like to send out a hello and a thank you to all the people that I met while emceeing the Hanged Man Tour and the Ben Stewart Talks in Sydney and in Byron Bay. It was truly a pleasure to meet the people that I did, and for the kind words that you all conveyed to me. I'm very sorry for the people in Victoria whom I did not get to meet because I didn't end up making it down to Victoria. I simply had too many other commitments at the time. I'd also like to very much thank anybody who donated to help me with the car. The donations that came in really did go a long way to helping me get the car back on the road, so I'm very, very grateful for that as well. Kind of just scraped through on that one, folks. It was absolutely amazing how it all happened, but we did scrape through. And I was very touched by the contributions that people made to the website in order to pull me through that period. Those of you who do listen to this show truly are a group of very wonderful people. So folks, 2011 has certainly been a hell of a ride so far. And it's truly anybody's guess what the rest of the year will bring to us. So hang on to your hat, folks, but make sure you maintain your energy through all of it. It really is the most important thing. I think it's an amazing time to be alive personally. I am honoured that I would be chosen to be here, or that I would have chosen to be here at this most auspicious time in our history, because I really do feel that this time that we are in right now is one of the turning points of human consciousness. And it's a game of chess, folks. It's a choice between love and fear, and it's a game in which energy speaks the loudest of all. So be aware of your energetic state. Meditate on the fact that atoms are empty space, that memory exists within water, that your body is holographic, that it downloads a frequency from the surrounding field via your cell membranes and your DNA, and gain an understanding of what reality is. You'll find that fear will drop away from you, judgment will drop away from you, and it will become much easier to maintain your energy levels. And when you do this, your reality will change, and that change will affect those around you in turn. Maybe not all, but certainly some. And you have to start with yourself anyway, folks. It's not until you reach these levels within yourself that you will ever really see any change. And other people need to wake up, certainly they do, but what is most important is that you wake up and that you maintain your energy levels, because this is what will wake up those around you. And they will wake up eventually, but they will do it in their own time, and that is exactly as it should be, because that's the experience that they're supposed to have. Otherwise they wouldn't be having it. And when I say those sort of things, I'm not saying that everything's fated and you should adopt a fatalistic approach to everything and think, well, why should I bother if it's all preordained anyway? Sure, it's a program, and it's a preordained program that runs to a certain conclusion, and there is no other conclusion. That ultimate conclusion is that we return to source, but the free will and the freedom of choice that each individual expression has within the matrix is what decides the path that is taken in that returning to source. So it is very important that people act. It's just that it's even more important that they act in the correct way and from the correct energetic state. That they don't act in a state of anger or revenge or violence or retribution. That they act out of compassion for their fellow human beings who suffer at the hands of this system, and that when they act, they follow the one law of service to the creation, because that's how true change will be effected. And that is the only way that it will ever truly be brought about. Well, that's about it for me for the day, folks. We have come to the end of the show. It's been a pleasure speaking to you again today, as it is always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much again for any support you have ever shown to the website. It truly wouldn't still be running if it wasn't for the support that you had all shown me. But that is it for me today, folks. I'll look forward to speaking to you again next week. Take care until then. In Lakesh.